brought a Fimi Palm. Hello, welcome to Hating Life. I'm 10 pounds heavier after Christmas, also known as Unperfect, and today I want to do something that's a little bit close to my heart, being a budget tech purchaser. I want to help people look at this, the Fimi Palm 1.
Blood for you from the flatliner crew. But don't forget we live in.
There's a good budget camera here, but it's got a lot of issues concerning audio and firmware. And it's important to be realistic with what you can get out of this camera, but with many people taking this up, the release of the Palm 2, information is spread few and far between, and there's a little bit of stuff that I want to talk about concerning the firmware. So I've got a list of tips, advice and what to watch out for with this budget camera, so we can get the best out of your money. So without further ado, let's crack on. So I'm going to cover the firmwares at first. So we're going to rewind back to firmware version 1121. Now this firmware they put in, it had corrected some of the issues previously they had with the audio. So this firmware, the ambient noise pickup is a lot better, but some of the drawbacks is the panoramic mode seems to fail, and there's no external mic indication or indicator when you connect something, so that can be a bit of a problem. So going on, we're going to breeze over firmware 1122. Now this completely destroyed the audio. There's not much else to go on that one, so I would ignore even considering 1122 over audio and performance. Now we're going to go on to probably the most stable firmware, firmware 1124. Now this firmware drastically brought back the audio, although it's a bit muted, so would need to be boosted. There's a slight bit of interference on the exit of speech depending on where you're recording from, arm's reach or more close up. You can also get some long form video audio syncing issues. So if your videos are exceeding, you know, the 14 to 16 minute mark in one recording, the camera will separate them into multiple files, and it will on the second file sometimes it can unsync the audio to the video, and you've got some extra editing layers there, and it is actually quite a pain in the arse. There's also the issue with the slow SD card error messages. Even if you're using a category 10 V3, it will still come up and it will stop recording if you're using phase tracking. Now there is a way to negate that issue completely by doing a small little bit of formatting on your memory card before you put it in the Palm to format. So if you can get some software that can change the format of a larger memory card, 64, 128 gig, you can format it in FAT32, and that will completely stop all the low speed SD card issues. It doesn't affect any of your footage or like saving onto your card. It just compiles it into those smaller bytes of data, and it just completely negates that big issue on the 1124 firmware. So passing on to their latest firmware, the firmware that's bringing a lot of people a lot of issues. So this is firmware 1125. Now this firmware did sort out the audio, it boosted it, but it absolutely destroyed the quality of the audio. High amount of interference, in some cases clipping, depending on if you put the mic too high or low. And I've been in touch with Fimi support, multiple emails. I've delved in, found lots of examples, provided them with full access to audio test files, video sampling files in their full capacity straight off the SD card. And they came back to me after a series of tests and they said, try this, it's a simple fix, you can correct the audio. So what they suggested to me was that you change the setting of the gimbal gain. Now obviously I went in, found that menu which is actually hidden away on the app if you go into the gimbal settings once you've linked up your camera to your phone. And I tried this, I tried multiple different settings with the follow speed, changing the gimbal gain on the app and changing the joystick speed of the gimbal, and nothing seemed to work. So I pressed on, relaying this information to support, and we've come to loggerheads. They want me to send the camera off. I've provided them with about 6 samples that I've found online, people who have got the same issue, different countries that are either aware of the issue or just using the camera, you know, maybe not having that knowledge and putting up their footage, and it's the same. So it just leads me to believe that it's Fimi's firmware. They need to get that firmware sorted. They really, really do. So failing that, we've got some alternative solutions. If you are going to be locked in on the 1125 firmware, I'd strongly suggest picking up the mic adapter. This would be recommended anyway for any sort of, you know, pocket camera, budget camera, if they provide one. If you want to get that better audio quality to go along with your footage. Separately from that, I would advise to use a separate audio recording device with a mic attached. You can use your mobile phone and you can get lav mics or shotgun mics that connect straight into the phone that don't require external battery source, and that will give you just some form of better audio, which would make your footage more usable, especially if you're in this budget tech or you don't have that money to invest in these, you know, the higher consumer market or professional quality equipment. So moving on, the other things that had changed with the 1125 firmware is they added all the frame rates for the recording. So you got your PAL and your HDSC up from 60, 50, 30, 24, 28 I believe is in there as well. It adds all those in, and off the back of that it changes the exposure and colour balance slightly. Now we're going to move on to some low light performance tips. Now obviously this is a small sensor. A lot of elitists will be like, you need this 1-inch sensor to even consider filming in low light, and that is true for the most part. If you're looking at trying to get some better low light footage, albeit it will have a little bit of noise, the manual shutter speed can be set as low as 1/25 or 1/30, whereas on auto it only goes as low as 160. So you first want to set your shutter speed down to 1/25, 1/25, 1/30, and then you want to leave the ISO on auto, because the ISO on auto goes up to 6400, whereas if you try to do it in the manual it goes only to 3200. So for the best low light performance, to try and improve some of your footage there, it's advisable to go on your manual shutter speed down to 1/25 and leave your ISO on auto, which will set it to 6400, and that will at least give you some footage that you can use in that situation. Wiping away all the firmware and the low light tips, the last bit is to go over the GIMBAL firmware. Now, the latest issue GIMBAL firmware that is only downloadable through the app is 108. Now, avoid this GIMBAL firmware. It's not stable. On boot up, it will put your camera at an upright angle. When you turn it on, if you change any settings, it will kick up and it will ignore the horizon. So if you're trying to get you know, record on boot up options or grab that bit of footage, it will always kick the angle of the camera too high, and you'll have to double tap the power button to center it, and if you break in footage it may kick up again. So you want to keep with the firmware 107. That's very important, that firmware. It's the most stable firmware. So closing down these tips and tricks, I, through a series of tests, speaking with other people who own the Fimi Palm and are putting the message out on YouTube and online, the most stable firmware to get the best out of your Fimi Palm at the moment is 1124 on the camera firmware and 107 on the GIMBAL firmware. Moving on from that, as you've heard probably, the Fimi have released the Palm 2. Now this has gone out, again, a series of firmware issues that shouldn't have been there in the beginning. The early adopters have been used as some sort of beta testers, and although they have improved after a quick release of about 3 different firmwares, the audio has improved. Some aren't too impressed with the quality of the image, and have even spoken out and said they believe the Palm 1 produces a better image quality, even though the Palm 2 has got this better sensor. This leads on to, if I rewind, going on to the series of emails, about 25 emails back and forth with Fimi Palm support, providing them with evidence and asking them questions, you know, is the Fimi Palm 1 going to become abandonware? Are we going to get a new firmware that rectifies the audio issues of the Palm 1 over 125? No answers. They didn't provide me with any answers to, you know, calm any of my concerns over being a purchaser of this product. So it's up in the air. I mean, I do believe that this camera, there is a good camera there if you've got your expectations on that budget to what you can cost and what you can get out of a camera that's not got that 1-inch sensor and these, like, you know, a 4 multi-directional microphones built inside, and, you know, the staffing level who have the knowledge to crack out this firmware and iron out the bugs of the operating system inside the cameras. So it is really up in the air. We don't know. I don't know. I will obviously share any more information online as and when I can, because I'm committed. I'm pressed on this matter. I want to push it further. I want to see Fimi acknowledge that there's something on, and they may have to do some further sorting out here. So I'm going to dump a load of information, examples, contacts, just any information that I've sourced, all in the description. So if you want to find out more, please check the description, drop me a message on this video, and I'll try to reply to you, sort out something. If you need firmware, if you need any firmwares, I can maybe sort out that, and we will hopefully have a place here with this video where people who own the Palm 1 can sort of reach out and get the support that they need or sort any issues. But if you need any help, drop a message. drop a message on this video, let's get talking, and let's have a little place on the internet where we can enjoy what we've purchased to a certain degree, and maybe change how Fimi sort out their tech team, basically. Well, if you want a video or anything else on some accessories that are great to go with this camera at really cost effective price, or accessories that can be modified to be used with this camera, like camera clamps, because it hasn't got a 1/4 inch screw mount on the bottom, again, share a message. I'll see what I can muster up, and I'll share the information and the bits and bobs that I've found for a great budget price. Thank you for watching. I've been Unperfect, and I hope this has helped you with your budget camera. I'm out.